So, I think it's time that we address the elephant in the room with Monster Hunter Wilds. So, Monster Hunter Wilds, since the Steam page has come out, has had varying tags applied to it. But two in particular have stood out. Those are hentai and dating sim. So, will and should Monster Hunter Wilds include monster sex? Now, here's my stance on it. I'll just come out and say it. Yes, it should. Now, will it? Okay, that's one thing we can't necessarily say for sure, but what I will say, here's my reasoning why it should have monster sex. So I went ahead and built up a couple points for support of monster sex. We already have precedent, right? The Monster Hunter 4U, Guildmarm, she fucks Bukidios. I mean, they're not shy about it. It's canon. So we already have precedent in the Monster Hunter world for monster sex. Okay? I think there's one thing to bring up, and that is, in the Monster Hunter world, is there even the possibility to have sex with monsters? Well, I mean, I've never seen a monster dick. I've never seen a monster, hoo-ha in game. Well, there are a couple of reasons why that might be the case. One, they haven't needed to model it, right? It's not been an option to interact with it, so they just didn't put it in the game. But one reason why we can think they have it is we transport monster eggs. So presumably, almost all monsters in Monster Hunter are, was it oviparous? Oviparous? They lay eggs. They don't give birth to live young. Now, we have seen some that do, like, maybe cocoons, like some different kinds of eggs. I believe Giganox maybe has, like, egg sacs. So they're not necessarily the same kind of egg, but usually eggs is what we see. But they gotta lay those somehow. I think you can actually watch Giganox give birth in-game, in combat. So, we're halfway there already. So what I'm saying is, while we haven't seen genitalia on monsters yet, I believe it exists. They've just not they've not had a reason or a need to have it in the game, but reasonably monsters would have it. And it's also quite possible that monsters hide their genitalia until the time is right, because Monster Hunter is a very dangerous world, having some, a swinging cock and balls, high risk in the Monster Hunter world, so you kind of got to tuck those up in there till you need them. It makes sense to me. Second point here, it would be lucrative. Sex sells. I mean, that's not a secret, and we're all a little bit furry. There are monsters I'd fuck in Monster Hunter, and monsters outside of Monster Hunter I'd fuck. A lot of monsters I'd fuck, honestly. So I think it would just make more money. That's it. It'd make more money. You can't argue against that. Any game that has sex in it will sell more than that game without sex. It's got massive marketing potential, right? Let's look at Baldur's Gate. At Baldur's Gate 3, what was the first big marketing that game received? It was completely incidental. It was bear sex, okay? Druid turns into a bear, fucks a vampire. Hey, we're going to buy this game. And let me show you a Google trend here that I pulled up. Look at this, okay? Look. I've charted, well, I didn't chart, but I brought up a chart that shows interest over time between bear, just the search term bear, and the search term Baldur's Gate 3, right? We see here this massive spike in interest in Baldur's Gate 3, okay? Perfectly coincides with a spike in search term of bear. Hey, I don't make the rules, but when people learned you could fuck a bear, they got real fucking interested in Baldur's Gate 3. I'm just saying. So, massive marketing potential, which means more fucking money, okay? And we gotta say, just because they should or could, does that mean they should? In terms of the world. Doesn't make sense in the world. Well, I mean, yeah, right? I mean, we weren't having sex with the monsters before in the game world, right? Even though we could have. But they could just make a need for it in Monster Hunter Wilds. In one way, I was thinking they could do that is through wildlife preservation, okay? Now, we don't necessarily have proof that humans and monsters can produce offspring through intercourse. However, one reason why I think it could be possible and could help in wildlife preservation are the Wyverians, okay? The Wyverian people, if you're not familiar, are a race of elf human-like individuals that, I mean, they're very close to humans. The Third Fleet Master in Monster Hunter World, she is a Wyverian. You'll notice because she's digitigrade. She walks on her toes. She has, I believe, 4 fingers. And it is widely believed in the Monster Hunter community that Wyverian lay eggs. And why is this? Well, they're different from humans because they descended from ancient monsters, okay? And if the genetics are there for the monsters to diverge into Wyverian, who are very close to human and presumably can have sex and produce offspring with humans, there's the possibility that at least some monsters could probably fuck and produce offspring with humans as well. So, the ingredients are there. The need is there. The desire for monster sex and Monster Hunter is there. Okay. Now, with that out of the way, I think we can all agree monster sex is... It should be in there. Will it be in there? I don't know. That's up to Capcom, and we can riot when it isn't. Okay? Or we can praise them when it is. So with that out of the way, I want to show you all my preliminary tier list of monsters from the Monster Hunter universe I think are high on my list of fuckable monsters. So, let's bring up this tier list. So, on the top of the... Let me zoom in a little bit. So, on the top of this list here... I do not want that there. Okay, there we go. This works. At the top of the tier is the literal fleshlight tier. We have 2 monsters in this tier that are literal fleshlights. We have Giganox and we have Keizu. So, you know, whenever people think of monster sex, a lot of times they'll bring up Keizu, which is fair, right? He's a literal fleshlight. But my argument would be that even better than him is the needlessly shelved monster Giganox. Giganox has a much better form factor for, you know, getting it on, as well as much better entry. It has a bit of juice. Keizu, a lot of teeth, but does have the added bonus of a little bit of shock therapy, shock fetish, if you're into that. So, you know, take your pick, but for me, I go with Giganox. Second tier, we've got the unique sensations. So, ribbed for her pleasure, hot and cold. That's what we're looking at here. So, up here, I've got Mizutsune, it's top tier. Oily bubbles. I mean, you're gonna be slipping and sliding. This is gonna be a fun all-around experience, right? I can do with some slippery fun. And then we have the mud wrestler, Almudron. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory there. If you like to get down and dirty, you get a little, you're not as slippery, but you're still, you know, you still got that little bit of sensation there. You're gonna like Almudron. Also, Almudron's got some whiskers. Hey, you might like a little tickle here and there. And then third place here, we got a Latreon, right? KY, hot and cold. If you like a little bit of whiplash on what you're feeling downstairs, a Latreon's got you covered, right? They can play both sides. Next here, we're going to bring up the throat goats. So, I mean, obviously you got the Great Jaggers and you've got Nibblesnarf. Now, for me, I'm going to rate Great Jagras higher than Nibblesnarf. Couple reasons. One, while they are both throat goats, you do see Nibblesnarf has a much larger maw compared to the Great Jagras. So while they can both take a lot in, you do have to think about the real estate you got to fill up. And in that regard, Great Jagras has a bit more of the, it feels less like a hot dog in a hallway. So that's where I'm gonna go with those two. Then we have the humanoid tier. These are basically monkeys and a rabbit. They're pretty humanoid. I think you're gonna get along quite well, and probably also the ones that are most likely to be compatible with humans. This one I don't really have ordered here in any particular order. I mean, you've got the thick ones, right? You got Lagambi and Kongalala. If you like a lot of cushion, hey, that's where you're going. If you like some snacks before and after, and maybe even during, Bish a 10. I mean, they're a 10 in my book in that regard. And then you've got Blanganga. If you like maybe a little bit more fit, if you're kind of the athletic type, I would say Blanganga is probably the way to go for you. Next here we have the bad bitches. So, I mean, Mammoth and Nargacuga, I mean, to me, they give off bad bitch vibes. If you like, someone going to come in and dominate, you got these two. They're also fluffy. That's a bonus. Very comfy. It's going to be warm in the winter nights when you're cuddled up in bed. You're going to want these two. And for the final tier, I have X-Ray. If you've ever been curious what it looks like in the act, well, there you go. They turn invisible, and it's like you're fucking the air, but it feels a lot better. So we got Chameleos bringing up the rear in the literal and metaphorical sense. So are there more monsters that I could and would put in this list? Probably, but this is my list here. I'm just doing a couple looks over the population. So I think not only does Monster Hunter Wilds have the desire to have monster sex, it has the reason to have monster sex, monetarily, as from a business perspective. So desire, reason, and we have potential candidates already in the game to be fucked. So that's my 2 cents. Let me know how you feel about it in the comments. What monsters would you fuck? And to be honest, which ones should we definitely not fuck? Valhazak's one probably should steer away from. But hey, to each their own. Like and subscribe, and I will see you later.